Think redlining died in the 1960s? Think again. Redlining never stopped. It just got rebranded. Banks are still denying non-white communities access to fair credit from the 1930s until now. But no one teaches this in school. The redlining case files breaks it all down. Real cases, real consequences, and real receipts. Learn how redlining still shapes your community today. If you're white, non-white, or just care about justice, you need this guide. Download the redlining case files now. What's happening? Thank y'all for tapping into the Constructive House channel, where we promote balance between all people, guaranteeing that those that need the most help get the most constructive help in all areas of people activity. And today's segment is going to be from our Behind the Lines playlist, where we discuss lending discrimination and redlining, as we believe it is very constructive to bring you awareness of anyone who's practicing these actions. Today's episode of Behind the Lines, we got a nasty violator, and they go by the name of Trident Mortgage Company, a major mortgage lender that's operating out of Pennsylvania and the surrounding areas. And Trident Mortgage Company was accused of redlining. So for those of you that may or may not know what redlining is a discriminatory practice where financial institutions avoid providing lending services like mortgages to residents in predominantly minority neighborhoods, regardless of what their financial qualifications are. And redlining was really established by the Homeowners Loan Corporation way back in 1933. And this practice that they set up back then disproportionately affected Black, Hispanic, and other non-white communities. See, what the HOLC, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, did was get together with examiners, appraisers, realtors, and loan officers, and they partnered up to create residential security maps, and they drew red lines around any Black neighborhood or any non-white neighborhood at the time. We're talking about way back in 1933. And they partnered up with the FHA to ensure anybody who had a red line around their community, you avoided lending to those communities. They didn't get any refinance relief. They didn't get any sort of lending packages, no down payment assistance, nothing. They got nothing. In fact, they lowered the values of anyone inside the red line. And that practice has disproportionately affected the Black community since 1933. And that's what has widened the wealth gap between whites and non-whites. And the funny thing is, redlining has been illegal since the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Yes, we're talking about 1968. It made redlining illegal and unlawful for lenders to deny services based on race, color, national origin, or religion. Now let's get back to this top violator that goes by the name of Trident Mortgage Company, who was so egregious, so disgusting, and oh so non-constructive that the feds had to launch an investigation. Yes, the Department of Justice and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau had to issue out a disciplinary punishment, yes, a DP, to Trident Mortgage Company for their nasty work when it comes to discriminatory lending practices. And some of the key findings that the DOJ and the CFPB found was that they got discriminatory lending practices going on, they got racist communications going on, they got targeted exclusion of non-whites going on, and they got a lack of outreach going on towards any non-white community. Yes, not reaching out, not marketing to Blacks is against the law. So the Department of Justice went ahead and issued out a DP so nasty that they had to settle for $24.4 million because they didn't want to get none of that smoke coming from the feds. Yes, the feds was on they behind. They was all on their bumper to ensure that they got that bread up out of them. Let's keep it real. They wanted to get the bread off of them. So just breaking down some of the things they did and what the DOJ and the CFPB found was that Trident Mortgage Company had a pattern of avoiding lending to Blacks and non-white communities. This was done through the practice such as refusing to lend in predominantly minority neighborhoods and offering loans at higher rates or less favorable terms to minority borrowers in areas where predominantly white borrowers receive better treatment. So we're talking about area one that's got more white folks. They're getting all the good loan terms. They're getting better programs, down payment assistance programs, DPAs. We're talking about refinance relief. All of that's going on in these white neighborhoods when it comes to Trident mortgage. But then when you got the non-white neighborhoods, they're not marketing to them. They're not giving them nothing. They don't got any programs. They're actually getting higher rates and less favorable terms than people of the same qualifications. Keep in mind, when we're talking about redlining, we're talking about folks that got the same qualifications. That's what we're talking about. So don't think, oh, it's because they don't qualify. No, that doesn't fall in redlining. What falls under that is you got same qualified applicants, which they find that through the peers. You got same qualifications, but applicant A getting the loan, applicant B ain't getting the loan. That's a violation, and that's why they got a DP. So going on to the next, we got racist communications. One of the most egregious elements uncovered in the case were the racist and discriminatory communications from Trident Mortgage Company's employees. This includes loan officers found to be exchanging racist emails and text messages about potential or current clients. Nasty work, the most dishonorable. Then we got some messages referring to Black and Hispanic individuals with the N-word, openly discussing ways to avoid working with Black folks. This is crazy work. The DOJ uncovered this. We got to be on a bumper about this. These communications were discovered in the form of emails and texts that were sent between 2016 and 2020, showing a clear bias in how employees engage with their customers. We're not talking about 1916 through 1920, 2016 through 2020. Let that sink in. Now, part of what the DOJ and the CFPB do when they're looking into these case files and these investigations on redlining and lending discrimination is they look at your applications versus your peers' applications. They want to see how you're measuring up, and they're looking for a pattern of some nasty work, and that's what they're doing. And recently, they've been launching all kind of investigations on a number of violators. So Trident Mortgage is not the only one, but this is nasty work, and like I said, we'll be staying on a bumper about that. But another thing I wanted to take a look at was the targeted exclusion of non-whites. See, the DOJ investigation revealed that Trident had systematically refused to offer home loans or provided much fewer home loans in areas with high Black or brown populations. The company used geographic targeting and discriminatory practices to ensure that these communities were denied access to home ownership opportunities. But don't just take my word for it. Let's see what the DOJ Press Conference has to say about this.
Standing with you all today at Malcolm X Park in West Philadelphia to announce that the Justice Department and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau have secured an agreement with Trident Mortgage Company to resolve our claims of redlining discrimination in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, including communities in Camden, New Jersey, and Wilmington, Delaware. In addition, our state partners in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware have reached agreements with Trident and its affiliate company, Fox and Roach. Our complaint, filed in federal court today, alleges that Trident violated the Fair Housing Act and the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Specifically, our complaint alleges that Trident's office locations were concentrated in majority white neighborhoods, that Trident's loan officers were directed not to serve and did not serve the credit needs of neighborhoods of color, and that Trident's outreach and marketing avoided those neighborhoods. The complaint also alleges that Trident's employees exchanged emails where they referred to neighborhoods of colors as ghettos and made racist jokes. There's even a photo of a senior Trident manager posing in front of a Confederate flag. Our complaint was filed along with a proposed consent order outlining the relief that we have secured. Today's agreement is historic for two reasons. First, this is the first redlining agreement that the Justice Department has secured with a mortgage company. Mortgage companies like Trident issue over 50% of the mortgage loans across the United States, so they are important players in the credit market, and their lending practices have a significant effect on the availability of credit. Other non-depository lenders should be on notice that the Justice Department will continue to enforce federal housing laws to ensure equal opportunity to access credit. Our agreement with Trident is also the Justice Department's second largest agreement in history. Under this agreement, Trident must invest over $20 million.
So it's my understanding that the only color financial institution should be focused on is the color green. However, in the case of Trident Mortgage, the only color they were focused on was the color white. And they demonstrated that by primarily putting their efforts into white majority areas when it came to mortgage lending, which is a clear violation of the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, which mandates that lenders report data on lending patterns to ensure compliance with the fair lending laws. And this is dishonorable work, just very non-constructive here, Mr. Buffett, who is the head. Yes, Warren Buffett, the Warren Buffett is the head of Berkshire Hathaway, which is the parent company of Trident Mortgage. And they're still practicing discrimination that was set forth by the most dishonorable company, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, established in 1933, who set the redlining maps from the beginning. And here we have Trident Mortgage still sending out emails, still sending out text messages saying that they are going to avoid lending to non-white folks. This is nasty work, dishonorable work, and you need every DP that you got. The only thing is we need to make sure that they're actually following through on all the consequences for these actions. So let's take a look here. Another thing that they got disciplined for was their lack of outreach and marketing. And despite popular belief, redlining is more than just denying an applicant because of the color of their skin. It's more than that. It's also the outreach and marketing efforts, because a lot of banks have programs that your average consumer wouldn't be aware of until it's advertised to them, until outreach is put in front of them. And when you withhold that from one group, but you give it out to the other, that is a clear-cut case of redlining, when they can see in these zip codes they're getting certain mailers, in these zip codes they're getting certain emails, in these zip codes they're getting certain classes that are being hosted and ran in their areas, but these other zip codes are not. And then they see that their peers are doing it and they're not. Now, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to rake in as many loans as you can. That's how you make your money. That's how banks make their money. That's how financial institutions make their money. And the biggest wealth builder for a mortgage company is mortgages. So why would you not want to lend out more money? The more loans you take on, they get bought in the secondary market so you can put more lending out there. Why would you avoid opportunities, especially when you got areas of people who are spenders? Makes no sense. But they decided not to market to any non-white communities. They did not engage in outreach or advertise mortgage products to minority communities, while the company marketed extensively in predominantly white areas. They did not attempt to establish any sort of presence in non-white areas. Their marketing campaigns were designed in a way that excluded diverse groups, failing to make minority neighborhoods aware of available home financing opportunities. And like I've said before, in order to build generational wealth, it comes from home ownership. And here they are trying to extend the wealth gap between non-white and white by avoiding lending, avoiding marketing, and even doing it so flagrantly that they would send emails and texts which have all kind of digital stamps that would show that you're doing it. So let's see what some of the consequences were for these violations. So it looks like they had settlement and financial penalties. Back in 2022, Trident Mortgage agreed to a $22 million settlement with the DOJ and CFPB. I believe earlier I said 24 million, and my apologies, is 22 million. However, this settlement included financial restitution for victims of discriminatory practices, including compensation for individuals who were denied loans or offered less favorable terms due to their race or ethnicity. So you mean to tell me the Department of Justice, the feds, saw that you all were giving out unfavorable interest rates, unfavorable loan terms, and they found it so egregious that they actually had to give restitution to the victims? That's disgusting work, Warren Buffett. Disgusting work. And I hope that y'all paid everybody, because I know it's some that got left out. But the company also agreed to invest in community outreach and marketing to better serve non-white communities in the future. Now, how do we hold you accountable for that? How do we know that you're actually going to do community outreach? How do you even quantify that? See, that's these type of punishments that is like you can't really hold them accountable. So was it all a money grab? Do you really care about lending discrimination? Do you really care about discriminating on loan applicants based on the color of their skin? I don't know, because it doesn't seem like this is much of a punishment by saying, oh, community outreach and marketing to better serve. How are we going to quantify that? Do they just post on the website, hey, we got a community outreach? What do we do? How do we do? We do on a roll call? Like, how does it go? I don't know. They didn't really explain it in detail. If someone does know, let me know in the comment section below. Anyways, they also were ordered to change their corporate practices as a part of the settlement. Trident was required to revise its internal practices to eliminate discrimination, including revising hiring practices, increasing staff training on anti-discrimination laws, and implementing better monitoring systems to ensure compliance with fair lending regulations. So I'll tell you this, there's all sorts of anti-lending, anti-discrimination trainings that you do just to get a license to be a mortgage loan officer. I know I have one, so I'm not sure what extra stuff that they can put out there to help, but we'll see. Time will tell. Now, they also said that they had accountability for the employees that were doing egregious acts such as wearing Confederate flags and sending emails and posts with that in there, sending text messages saying you're going to avoid lending to black folks. Crazy work. Also talking smack about to have been disciplined, with some facing termination or other repercussions, which we don't know what that really means, but that's what they're saying. The company anti-racism training to ensure what anti-racism training actually means, because I have no idea. That seems like something that's kind of, but you tell me what anti-racism training is. How do you that? How do you expand? I don't even. Too many questions. Too many questions. Do some anti-racism, but like, what does that really mean? Like, what does that really mean? Sitting down and watching a Trident mortgage case really serves as a reminder for everybody out there. This continues to affect non-white people when we're talking about lending, the housing market. Despite it have been illegal since 1968, we see that banks are still using those same maps. Again, the residential security maps created by the Homeowners Loan Corporation, they're still using those same maps and still discriminating on those same areas, and they're finding ways around the system to violate the Fair Housing Act, to violate the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, to violate the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and overall to violate the non-white community. I do hope that all has found this as a constructive broadcast, as we are here to promote those that need the most help getting the most help, and we ultimately are here to promote balance between people and do away with this class groups based on race We're here to do away with that, and we're going to do everything we can to counter that. And one step is by bringing awareness to these flagrant violations. Thank you, Department of Justice, for bringing up the DP. Hopefully, y'all will continue to hold them accountable. If y'all found this was constructive, go ahead and put a house in the chat, put a wrench in the chat, and put a comment in the chat. Please like, share, and subscribe. This has been constructive on my end. I hope it has been on your end. And until next time, stay constructive.